Hi guys, and welcome back to the fourth and final installment of our Slow Jigging for Beginners series. In this episode, we'll cover reels and line. We'll start out with our line selections. Slow jigging at its essence is a light line or finesse technique. Quality PE braid is essential to be successful in this facet. We need to remember that we're not trying to have the thickest line or the heaviest lines. Be very selective of the lines you choose. Look for a line that has a clear PE rating. Lines around PE3 are what I consider the maximum that you should be using while slow pitch jigging. If you go too thick or too heavy, the current will affect your line too much. You'll get a very large bow and your jig will scope out. This will stop you from fishing vertically and you won't fish on the mark. To go over the different classifications of braid or PE line, you get 4 strand, 6 strand, 8 strand, 9 strand, even 12 strand. 4 strand is a very coarse and abrasion resistant braid. It often saws through the guides, it's very loud. I only suggest this if you're on a really tight budget or if you're fishing in a very foul area. 8 strand is sort of a standard accepted across the industry. It's smooth enough, it's got fair abrasion resistance, and it's fairly common. 9 strand, 12 strand are much more expensive, a lot more geared towards very finesse techniques, but they don't warrant the extra cost over the 8 strand. My personal suggestion is look for a good quality 8 strand and you'll be set. When it comes to line selection, this is one area that you cannot skimp out on. Remember, the line is the connection between the rod, the reel and the jig. If you have a bad quality line, the entire system falls apart. Moving on to reels. Overhead models have always been the standard for slow pitch jigging. They offer better connection and more effective control over the rod and the jig. Let's look at some sizes. On your very light spectrum, you'll have 150 size. This I would suggest for your super light or light slow pitch. PE 0.8 to PE 1. On your middle spectrum, which I consider really your all-round go-to, is a 300 size, spooled with PE 1.5 up to PE 2. On your really large reels, you can look at going up to a 30, or in the Shimanos like this one, a 2000 size. These reels are very heavy, quite cumbersome, and I only suggest them if you specialize in deep water slow pitch jigging. PE 2.5 to PE 3 is what I would suggest for these reels. Really, if you're starting out, I would highly suggest that you look at something like this. It has enough line capacity, drag ability to handle almost any fish you will encounter. A very important aspect about overhead models is the large power handle. You'll see these in almost all dedicated jigging or slow pitch jigging reels. This actually gives you control over the rod. You got to remember, you're not working the rod and the reel, you're working the reel and the rod. Another important factor we have to remember, we briefly touched on it in the previous video, is gear ratios when it comes to slow pitch jigging. And it's quite easy. The opposite of the name is the gear ratio you choose for your jigging facet. For fast jigging, you use slow retrieve models or power gears because you want to have your lure in the zone for longer. For slow pitch jigging, where it's all about connection and feel, you want a fast retrieve reel. You want to stay in continuous contact with your lure. Looking at spinning reels. Now I know I said that overheads are the better choice. But for someone who's starting out, trying their hand at slow pitch jigging, you'll often already have one of these reels in your arsenal. It's much cheaper and easier to go out and buy an entry-level slow pitch rod and pair it with one of your existing reels rather than going and buying out an entire system from scratch. The key here again, these are all high-speed reels. Power gears do not work well for slow pitch jigging. Another key aspect, if you look at all three of these reels, they all have a large power knob fitted to them. Looking from your smaller sizes, a 4000 size PE1, a 5000 size PE2, and a 6000 size as your largest reel PE3. Anything larger than that, it becomes too cumbersome, tiring, and too heavy to continuously work effectively. Now, it's not the purest form of doing it, but it will get the job done. However, remember, as we mentioned, they do not function as well as overhead models. There are little tips and tricks that you can do with a spinning reel to stay in constant contact with your jig, but it is a lot more difficult. Anywhere from 30 to 60 meters is quite doable with these reels, but when you get to deeper waters, you start to lose control and contact, and I highly suggest that you actually look at an overhead setup. Thank you very much for watching this brief introduction into the world of slow pitch jigging. Please remember that this series was aimed at beginners and novices wanting to try their hand or get into the art of slow pitch jigging. It was not meant for experienced slow pitch jigging anglers. If you've got any questions or comments, please drop them down below. In the next episode, we'll go over some handy tips and tricks to make your slow pitch journey a lot easier. Once again, thank you for watching. Cheers.